BI360. I'm your host from SIS. Christine Simon will be presenting the application, and Anthony, their VP of Sales, will also be speaking today. I'm Max Thomas with SIS Software, and Talisha Kraft is also on as well. And I'm getting a Windows warning. So just to introduce you a little bit to SIS, in case you're not familiar with us, most of you are our customers. Everything we do is centered around Microsoft. Certainly ERP is at the core and heart of everything we do, but we do have some real pillars of our solutions in CRM and project management on SharePoint. During this webinar, Debbie Peavy will be your contact. If you're having any technical difficulties, please email her. All your phone lines are going to be muted, but you'll have an opportunity at the end for a Q&A session and to send in your questions. So please view in full screen mode so you can see some of the small detail better. And this webinar will be recorded and on the SIS website in case you miss anything. And with that said, as your host, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony with Solver to go over the agenda and then go right into the demonstration. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Max. We really appreciate this opportunity to present BI360 to your special customers and prospects. So I'm going to just speak for a few minutes, and I promise it'll be minimal, so we can get to the live demo, which is really probably which is most compelling to most people that attend webinars. So I'm going to discuss just a little bit, give you some perspective, a little bit of background on Solver, and then with an architectural view, give you a overview of our products, and then we'll go into live demo. Okay, thank you for advancing the slide. Solver has been around since 1996. However, our flagship product, BI360, has been available now in the marketplace for 4 years now, and we've just crossed 700 customers. So we're very excited about that. The reason we're growing is because we have outstanding strategic partners like SIS, and because the product itself is so esteemed in the marketplace. As you can see, we're winning lots of awards, and we're hoping, we got our fingers crossed by the end of the month, that we will make it to Gartner Group's Magic Quadrant. So the product is very well accepted, and we're a very experienced company in the BI space. Now on the next slide, you'll see that BI360 is a comprehensive BI solution. And this is the most important thing I like to communicate to people about BI360. When you see it, you're going to be very impressed. But you have to keep in mind, it is a comprehensive suite. Many people think of BI strictly as financial reporting, and that's traditional, and that is very important as far as business intelligence goes. But there's much more to BI than that. So we also have budgeting and forecasting, which we call planning. We have a very exciting web-based dashboard, as well as web-based reporting. We also have a very powerful data warehouse, which allows a user, a company, to integrate many sources of data to do their reporting, budgeting, and planning on, and maybe even have dashboards do reporting on multiple sources of data, not just a single source of data. And then we have another aspect to our product called collaboration. And collaboration, on the next, we can move to the next slide. I'm sorry, move ahead one more slide, Max. Thank you. I'm taking a little out of, I apologize. One more slide. Okay, I'm sorry, back up. I'm sorry about that, Max. I threw you off. Let's go back to right here. I'm sorry, I was going to talk about collaboration, but collaboration is a concept which you'll see at the top of this screen. And collaboration is a way for organizations to organize data, archive data, but then have productive collaboration, that is discussions about particular projects, maybe even a budgeting process. I'm not sure we're going to be able to have time to show much about collaboration today, but it's another exciting aspect of BI that is becoming accepted in the marketplace and important, and soon it'll be a part of BI360. So architecturally, here what I want to point out to you is that you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see reporting. This is an important part of BI. Now, we report live on both SL and AX, but we also report through our data warehouse. You see the data warehouse in the middle of the screen. The data warehouse, as I mentioned before, it's a place to aggregate multiple sources of data, whether it's cloud-based, whether it's data coming out of SL or AX, or it could be other systems like payroll and other sources of data, maybe even just Excel spreadsheets. All this data can be aggregated in the data warehouse and then organized and reported on. Budgeting and planning also works through a data warehouse because you have to be able to write back and save the information and the forecast that you're projecting. So also that writes back into a data warehouse. And then finally, dashboards. Dashboards can report both live on SL and AX, but also report off of, as I mentioned, this aggregated data in the data warehouse. And then finally, we have integration to cloud-based products. So when you look at BI360 and when SIS introduces you to BI360, don't think that there's any limitation. Of course, we'll work with the AX and SL data. But you don't have to worry about your different sources of important data that you have. All can be integrated into your reporting, budgeting, and overall BI solution. And that's all that I really wanted to cover in this aspect. I think you can move forward. Thank you, Max. And I think now Christine is going to go into the live demo because seeing the product's the most exciting part.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Max. All right, so we'll start out really looking at a report package called Decision Pack, and it really combines all of the great features and functions about Excel into a single report package. It starts out at the top level, that executive level, where we can see an auto-generated executive summary, and that detail is generated from these reports on these other tabs. So taking into consideration my P&L information for profit information, looking at my sales and my product listings to populate that component of it. It uses business logic, so I can say profitability was great or weak depending on what it was, and turns that into a nice little auto narrative. That came back from a suggestion from a number of our clients who said they'd love to do that kind of functionality but just don't have the time to build a narrative. This builds it based on that financial data and that operational data. The next tab uses scorecards. Scorecards have been around for a long time. The idea of a balanced scorecard really helps your organization with their performance and enhancement of those performance around those key processes. So internally, we use it to indicate whether or not we're doing well in our revenues, etc. We all look forward to those green lights. It really creates that culture around those KPIs. The next tab is a P&L report, and this is one of my favorite formats for a P&L, and it uses collapsible groupings here as well. Scoot over this way. And then I got a full comprehensive look at the current month. I've got my current month actuals. I've got the same month last year, a nice variance between those, using those little conditional formatting traffic lights as well, comparison to my budget amounts, and then I've got some year-to-date details out here as well, where I can compare January over same month last year. Now, those P&L details can also be pulled out and pulled into really engaging charts and graphs using that great feature about Excel that everybody loves so much. And it helps those non-financial people really look at trends easily. They can identify them, so I can see that my revenues are going up, but yet my profit margin's going down. That means I probably have some expenses that are out of control in that month. It also uses things like predictive analysis, so I can take my budget numbers and my actuals and try to predict out what I think my revenues might be. And then, of course, by line of business, I have each one of those metrics broken down by actuals, last year to date, and budget amounts, so I can quickly see those trends as well. The next dashboard pulls out key expenses. And one thing you'll know that everything I show you today is based on a template. So you can take those templates, use them as a baseline, and configure them for the information you're interested in looking at and analyzing. In this case, I'm looking at salary details and marketing expenses, but you can configure that for any expense that you're interested in monitoring more closely. And then down here at the bottom, I have a liquidity dashboard. So in this report package, I've got a nice cash flow statement that has my current year and last year information, but we pulled out the details into a nice little liquidity dashboard so I can spot those cash flow trends as well. Of course, it's got a great balance sheet, current year and last year information, a nice cash flow statement, and then it starts to get down into the details, those subledger details, such as my top sales transactions, and uses those conditional formatting to alert me where customers and transactions have outperformed my expectations with those green lights. And that way I can take them to a nice customer appreciation event, or flip side, look at those ones at the bottom of the list and find out, maybe I need to call them and find out what's going on with them and why they haven't ordered as much as I expected. And then, of course, a top list of my top products and those transactions down here as well, so I can see those big ticket items. Flips it around for payments so I can see my top payments going out and then all the ones within an acceptable range. Receivables, who do I need to call, and those days outstanding details. And then it finally comes to a head with what we call a decision advisor. And a decision advisor really helps you monitor the progress towards your goals that you set at the beginning of the year. So it uses language like you're allowed to hire that new support consultant. My boss calls it the Susie Orman tab because it uses language like you're allowed. So when I reach my goals, it says, you know what, you can go out and hire because that was what we agreed to at the beginning of the year. And then I can monitor my progress as the year goes on as I maintain my progress towards those goals. That all comes in a single report package, and I call it the ultimate report package because it uses 6 different technologies: an auto narrative, a scorecard, financial reports, dashboards, as well as subledger reports, and then that decision advisor. Let's take a step back, though. There's a number of ways to run reports, so let's look at it from the end user perspective, and while we're doing that, we'll really deconstruct what's going on inside those reports and those templates. These are some of my SL templates. I've got a number of AX templates as well too. And just starting at the top level, we'll start with this one. One of the key factors is that you only have to format the templates one time. So that means you can add your logos, you can add your charts and your graphs. There's no more cutting and pasting and extracting to Excel. All of that's happening inside this add-in right here. I've got a nice Run tab here, which means I have a user license, which means I can run reports on demand with drill down and drill to access. I also have all the features and functions that I love about Excel, which we saw inside that decision pack. And we also use Active Directory security. So the security is based on any dimension that you want. I've got it set up so that any location I have access to will show up on this list. If I don't have access to it, then the only thing that's going to show up are the areas where I do have responsibility. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it blank and go ahead and use all of them. Hit Run here and it's going to populate the details. And there's a couple things going on here. So it'll go ahead and pull in those range of accounts and allow me to easily look at those details, my current period, my year-to-date amounts, my budget amounts, and anywhere I see a number, I can just drill down. And right out of the box, you're going to have 4 different types of drill down. You've got the ability to drill down to that summary level, to those transaction levels, or to pivot tables. If we just take a look at the transactions, you'll see the journal entries behind that sales amount in that revenue file. And from here you can see across the top, we've got a great metadata layer where we've translated all of the fields and table names into plain English so that when you're building a report, it's easy to build but also easy to consume those reports. So you can easily filter based on information you recognize, like vendor ID. And when you're done with your analysis, just come back to sheet 1 and continue on to the next cell and continue drilling down into those details. Now there's another way you can drill down actually, which is drill to. Drill to takes you, say, from your revenue accounts back to sales order processing, or if you're looking at expense accounts, you want to look at accounts payable or purchasing, you can do that too. Or if you're looking at expenses and maybe you want to drill to the project data, you can drill to any of the details that you want to in that subledger. And this is all reporting live off that SL data. Let's take a look behind the scenes here because there's a couple things going on. You'll see that if I added a new account, it would just show up the next time, and how it does that, click on that Design tab, and it's only for those people who are power users. You'll see that we've actually got dynamic ranges. This is pretty interesting because now I can build reports that are smart, that will pick up new accounts within that range. So if I added, say, a 3021 account, it would automatically show up in that range based on that filter that I ran it for. Really a nice way to ensure that you don't have to go back and edit those different templates every time there's a change inside your ERP package. That grouping, so you'll see it highlights that row 8, and if I do a row 11 and it highlights row 11, you can group and filter at the row level, but also at the column level. What's interesting about the column level is now I don't have to worry about creating current period -1 calculations, etc. It's dynamic, and it's going to expand and collapse based on the different ranges that I select. The other thing that's going on here is you'll see that all the modules I have installed will show up over here on the left-hand side, so I can build reports not only for general ledger information, but also for that sub-ledger information too. You'll see that we've taken all the fields and tables and turned those into a nice metadata layer that makes it simple for people to recognize their accounts, their sub-accounts, and those are all become dimensions, so I can easily mix and match those dimensions to filter data down to any combination, also secure data down to any combination, or be able to budget down to any information. And remember, everything we teach you about reporting is reusable knowledge for building great budgets and forecasts too, which we'll get to at the end. Okay, so let's take a look at another one of my templates. This one's pretty interesting, especially if you have the projects going on. You can do some really interesting reports. This one's also got a nice chart in it as well. And I can now select exactly which projects I want to include in that analysis. And as I select them, I can select ranges or just pick and choose which ones I want to include in that. Then I can also choose the different account types. Maybe I want to see work in progress versus all the data. And this one I'm actually going to do all of it together, both unbilled and billed transactions. Hit run, and it's going to give me a nice breakdown of each one of those projects by revenue and by expenses, and then I'm going to be able to see a nice consolidated view of all those projects that I selected together. And then a nice chart showing you where that margin is there, that profit margin on those projects, which one's my most profitable project. And it looks like my office building is. But it also looks like I haven't billed that many expenses out either. So with the one with the most details, that's where my profit margin is. Great way to use those templates to get to any data within your system. Now, we've looked at how to run reports inside Excel, but BI360 also has a great web portal module that allows you to extend that reporting capability with all the same features and functionalities. Whoops, I went to the wrong little button there. Let's come over here. There we go. And you can use the same security information, so you set that security up one time. Users are recognized. But what I like about the portal is the fact that it really simplifies the view for the end user, where they are assigned to all of those different report templates they can run on demand. They can mark their favorites and easily find them in a nice little list. And then from there, the reports themselves maintain all of their integrity, where they have all the charts and graphs that they had inside Excel. And they can mix and match not only live reports, but reports that are off the data warehouse or your Microsoft CRM reports with their dashboards that can be either live or off the system as well, too. We'll look at this report first, and then we'll look at a dashboard. This is one of my favorite reports. It has that auto narrative also built into it, and I can toggle between the different versions of that report and do quick comparisons. I can also look on that second page, and anywhere I see a number, just like I can do with inside Excel, I can drill down to those details behind it. And if you've got that drill to built into it, you can drill to those details as well. And anytime I want to refresh that data, I just hit the refresh button and I'll get the latest and greatest version of that report with the data either live off my ERP system or off the data warehouse. There's a couple other things you can do with this too. I can always access any of my favorites down here across the bottom. I can share this report, so if I'm walking into a meeting and I want to take a digital copy of this report with me, I can scan this QR code, and now I've got drill down and drill to on my tablet or my phone, and a nice digital copy of that report, presentation quality. I can also share the report, so if I want to have a discussion around a P&L variance, I can send a URL to another BI360 user, and now we're looking at the same report. And then, of course, the number one question everyone asks is, once I get that report out into the web, how do I get it back to Excel? Well, because it's born in Excel, it has the ability to go back to Excel very nicely as well, too. So you'll see that the reports will maintain all of the capabilities it had within Excel, and all my formulas are going to come across as Excel formulas. Now I've got a version of that report I can take with me on the plane or anywhere where I'm not connected to the internet. The other thing going on out here on the web portal are the dashboards. And dashboards are a little bit different than the charts and graphs in your reports because they're dynamic. So it gives me the ability to dynamically get to data. So I can click on one box and it drills across to the next box, and I'm able to look at a graphical representation of not only my financial data, but data down in my subledgers as well too. So I can see what my top products are. If I want to drill into any of those amounts, I can. Or if I want to refresh that data, I can do that on the fly, or I can have it set to auto refresh. Great way to take your data to the next level and really provide insights to your executive team or some of your other management members. And as you click across, it starts to update those numbers for you, and you're able to pull that information into a nice little page. And looks like I'm having a little bit of trouble there with my portal this morning. But we'll take a step back and come back to Excel. And from here, you can, in the next release, you'll also get mobile apps. So you'll also get the iOS apps too. I'm going to close down a couple of these reports, and we're just going to do we're going to build a report together so you get a feel for really how easy it is to use the product. It has a lot of great features, the drag and drop capabilities, the accounting logic, and we'll select that new blank here. And then from here, I can select either to build that report off my data warehouse or live off my data. I'm going to go ahead and choose SL. OK, choose my company. The great news is you learn to use one report writer, and now you can use it across all of your systems. It's a what you see, what you get report writer. So I start out with a nice blank canvas and an Excel spreadsheet, and I can start to add things like my title, and I can add my column headings to it as well. Really do all that formatting before I start to drag and drop anything onto the report. Go ahead and open that up a little bit. We'll make this bold and make that a little bit bigger, and we'll put a little border around these guys. And make those bold, open that up. All right, so now I've got the basic structure for my report, and I'm ready to start dragging and dropping over the fields and dimensions that I'm interested in reporting off of. Come over to my GL module, go to Account, so I'm just going to drag over that account, and it's going to pop open with a nice little dialog box. This comes back to that building smart reports. So the idea is that I should be able to take the data and use it in a dynamic group on the column or the row. I'll go ahead and select row here, and it puts that little plus sign, and you'll see it highlights my row 7 here. And now I'm going to go and select that range of accounts. Highlight them all, so if there's any new accounts added, they're automatically going to be included. That's going to take care of a lot of the heavy lifting for me, so I don't have to go back and modify this report every time there's a new GL account. The other thing going on here is it has an option to expand to show all accounts or just to summarize that account range. Really useful for building those balance sheets or for building cash flow statements. You can just summarize those range of accounts in those different categories. Come over here and let's pull over my description and account name. All right, so now I've got my account and my account name sitting next to it, and I'm ready to add one of my measures. All the ones with the little plus sign, the green plus sign, equal dimensions. And then down here at the bottom you'll see some nice little dollar signs which represent all the amounts inside my system too. So pull over amount and copy that across. So now I have two amounts sitting side by side, and you can make those have some relevant time, so accounting logic built into them, by coming down to functions. And functions are really, you see a little calculator there, are calculations for time. So instead of having to hard code reports with current period -1, 2, or anything like that, we've come up with these calculations to really enhance the usability of building reports. They work not only on those financial reports, you can get trended review information and rolling forecast calculations, but they also work on your operational reports. You just drag them over, and now I've got column D, there's a little box here, so at the intersection of D7, I'm going to get my year-to-date amount for that account range. Very dynamic. To compare my year-to-date amount to another time factor, maybe last year or something like that, just drag that over, and now that one's grouped and filtered on my last year-to-date amount. So D is year-to-date, and E is last year-to-date. And that's a dynamic parameter, so when I type in a period, it's going to automatically recalculate based on that run parameter. And then here, I'm going to add a variance column, and that variance column is very simple. It's going to use an Excel formula. So some accountants kind of smile here because then they get to use those as skills that they already have, building formulas using Excel, not Excel-like formulas. And then I'm going to add a total line here down at the bottom. We're almost done with our first report. And I'm going to put a sum here and then drag that across. Turn that into currency, get rid of a couple decimal points, and put a little border around it. Now I've got my first report. It's a very elegant little design. It's only 3 lines long, and I could add, of course, my logos to it or whatever. Only has to be formatted once. And then this run parameter is what drives the results of what's going to go into this report. So if I come over here and run it for a period and hit run, it'll populate with my year-to-date data. Working with demo data, so I have a lot of last year-to-date information. My variance mounts, and expand this report out to include all of the GL accounts that were within that range, including all sub-account combinations. And anywhere I see a number, right out of the box, I can drill down to those general ledger transactions, check the integrity of the report, and make sure I'm getting the results I'm expecting before I even save the report or share it with anybody. When I'm done, I can come back to sheet 1, and I can take this report to the next level by adding some additional functionality. Come back to design. And this time I'm going to actually add a sub-account, and we're going to filter at that page level, which is a unique feature for our products. So come to sub-account, and let's pick region. And we'll come over to that account and put that description there. Another thing you'll notice is my user-definable fields are here too, and if you have any custom fields or tables, we can add those to that metadata layer with our integration tool that comes with it. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the entire page, and I'm going to drag region over. That created a new parameter. So let's go take a look at that parameter and walk through what's going on there and add that new feature to filter at the page level. It is a nice little wizard, so again, a lot of intelligence built into it. I can choose my different lookup style, and then right here, where create sheet per value. A lot of our customers say that saves them a lot of time. They spend time cutting and pasting different dimensions on different pages based on who the reporting audience is. This helps to automate that. And then when I come back to the Run tab, you'll see I've got my Choose Region here. Look up, and look what happens when I run it for one region. It'll filter that data down to that sub-account level, relabel the bottom for me, relabel the top for me, and then if I go back and run it for all of my regions, you'll see that it'll do the same. So it's a real time saver. You'll get that first page with that default information, my north information filtered, my south, my east, and my west on its own tab, and all relabeled nicely for you. And that makes it so that you can build really nice reports with a great summary page and then a breakdown by whatever dimension you want, whether it's cost center, department, region, location, etc. Now you can have them on their own filtered page, and you don't have to do any manual manipulation of that report to have that happen for you. A lot of people get kind of excited there. It's a pretty cool feature. It's unique to our product, so that's one of the reasons we like to show it too. Okay, so far we have looked at just the Excel-based report writer. We've looked at how end users run those reports. We've looked at how you build a report, and then we've looked at how you run those same reports through the dashboard and web portal module. There are two more components within reporting, and one of them is a real time saver also. It's the BI360 publisher. it allows you to automate the scheduling and distribution of your report packages. And depending on how many you send out to different audiences every month, you can shrink that time down and automate that process by building a package of reports that might include not only your financial reports, but subledger reports, but also maybe a Word document. So with a nice cover page, a nice table of contents, maybe you have your own narrative you want to include, maybe you build out board packages that you have to send out every month. This helps to build that package using templates and whatever documents you want to include in that. Once that package is built, you can actually send that package of reports out multiple times to different distribution targets. I have this set of monthly reports being sent out twice. One time as a merged PDF. You can see all the different formats I can choose from. I'm sending it out to my report library. It could be our BI360 report library in collaboration, or it could be SharePoint or just a shared drive. At the same time, I'm sending it out as a merged workbook via email out to a list of email recipients. And those recipients can be both BI360 users and non-BI360 users, and the system's going to go ahead and apply that security. So I get reports every Tuesday and every Friday, and those reports are all tailored around the business areas where I have responsibility. That handles all of that filtering for you and applies those security options. These report packages can be scheduled to go out daily, weekly, or monthly, or even if you're at the end of the month and you're not sure when you're going to get finished up, you can run them on demand and they'll be sent out to those appropriate audiences, applying that appropriate security as well. We get our sales reports every Tuesdays and Fridays, and you can have those sent out to people. You can also have reports sent out to people outside the organization because you don't need that user license either. The next component of BI360 is our ad hoc query tool. It's a pretty cool tool. It works both live off of SL or AX data, but also on the data warehouse. It's really one of those tools that's easy to use, takes about an hour or so to learn. It's a really great way to get to know your data because it uses that same metadata layer as you do to build reports. And then I can go to any module, and without really any technical experience or expertise, I can start to just drag over this blank canvas the fields that I'm interested in looking at. So maybe I want to pull over period, and maybe I'm also pulling over some additional data down here, so maybe transaction data. Bring over that transaction type, description, and dates here. So now I've got all those fields that I want to pull over. They're all modifiable. I can just change the order around. It takes about an hour or so to learn how to use this product, but as I said, it really gives you that twofer where you get to learn your data as well as the ability to do ad hoc queries in a true ad hoc environment. Let's put some filters on it. So now I can filter that data. Let's come back up here, put a filter for vendors, and let's put a filter for period. Select a range that I know I've got some good data out there. And let's pull in from, well, that range should do it. And let's pull a range of vendors in as well. I don't have too many vendors, so let's pull all of them. And hit refresh. So it gives me a nice data dump, a raw data dump, and then from here, where you get that true ad hoc capability is the ability to group. So now I can group it by transaction type, and now I can see all of those transactions. I can see my checks. I can see any type of transaction grouped together, and then I can group it again by vendor, then transaction type, and then with one more click, I can have row totals. And then with another click, I can have a breakout by period with those row and column totals. Now that's probably not the most exciting part. The most exciting part is you can save this and use it over and over again to just refresh it with the different type of filters you want to. You can always model that data different ways as well. And you can export it to Excel. You can share it with your colleagues. You can export it back to PDF. Or you can export it back to that report designer and use that as a baseline for jump-starting building some of those templates inside Excel. The beauty is these become your run parameters, like we added to that little wizard, and these you can just add your logo to it. All of your calculations turn into Excel calculations for you as well. So it's very dynamic in nature, and it's like having a cube without the cube. So can get to both your AX, your SL data, or the data you have inside that data warehouse. Great tool. Okay. We've looked at a lot so far. That's most of the reporting components. We've covered a high-level view of that. We've got a lot of other templates out there that are pretty exciting as well. But just so you know, we're going to hit on planning right now. And that planning module is very much married to that reporting module in that the minute I build all of my budgets and my forecast using the same tool we used to build that trial balance. Now the only difference is I have that security, and I also have that database on the back end that stores all of my assumptions, my justifications, my workflow, as well as all the different versions. And when I'm done with that budget and I've got my final budget approved, I can push it back to my ERP system, and I'm going to be able to use that for reporting budget versus actuals. Now you can pull any type of data in there, and there's really not a budget type that I've met that we don't do well. So CapEx, personnel, etc. We're going to look at a couple of those right now. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to close up this little component. You'll notice that the planning tab sits right next to the reporting tab, and that's by design. You shouldn't have to get in and out of Excel in order to access your reports or your budgets. Now for budgeting, there's a couple key functionality features we're going to cover today. One of them is assignments. Assignments manages the flow of the budget, the workflow. So I can see from an end user perspective which budgets are upcoming. So maybe I'm being alerted, a couple weeks beforehand that we have a budget cycle coming up. I can see which ones are active. These are my homework, which ones I need to work on. And then I can see which ones have already ended. Within that active button, you'll see that I've got a lot of different types of budgeting. So we do a really good job with modeling, breakbacks, etc. We do a great job on forecasts. We'll look at that rolling forecast today, as well as just your standard annual budgets as well. And you'll see that we have assumptions, personnel, CapEx, revenue, and other expenses, balance sheet. And then that brings you to really getting some great cash flow projections from that data. Starts at the top level with assumptions, and assumptions basically are the drivers for calculations. You can set those at a global level, but the big differentiator is that you're not going to have to link spreadsheets or formulas together in order for that to work. You've got that database on the back end, so when someone updates those assumptions, they press Save Data, and those are updated. The other key thing going on here, you'll notice, is that these different folders have different assignment details. I have a note to my end users on what to do and how to run that. They also see the start and stop date for that budget. And then from an admin perspective, I have visibility into where they are in the budget process. Have they opened it? When have they completed it? Did they submit their assignment yet? When they hit that submit, it goes to ended. So now I have a way to see where everybody is in the process, see if they're approval, a pending approval, etc. And when they hit submit, then I can either approve or reject that budget. The templates, you only need one template per budget area. So let's say, for instance, you're doing a budget for 10 or 20 departments. You typically have to export, put that into a spreadsheet, and filter it, and then combine those all manually. We get rid of all those manual processes, really all the things you hate about budgeting in Excel, and give you all the things you really like. We'll start out here looking at my personnel budget, and I start here because this one is a really good example of pulling in data from multiple sources. So it's going to start out, I've got a template that looks a lot like my reports, and I can pull data together from my payroll system, which can be ADP, it can be Ceridian, or any of those other ones you might be using, UltiPro or whatever it might be. Pull in those actual employee names. This is one of those budgets that usually takes a long time too. And I can use the same template across all of my divisions and across all my departments, but with that extra security. So I'm only going to be able to budget for the areas of the business I have responsibility. I can also have multiple budget scenarios. Really useful if you're having a best case scenario, worst case scenario, before you decide on which budget you're going to select for the year. So you can have multiple budgets or multi-year budgets if you're in the nonprofit area. Let me go ahead and hit run. It's going to pull in some actuals for me. And it's going to pull in the names of all my employees. It's going to tie them to the GL account, so these are my full-time employees. Down here at the bottom, I've got my part-time employees, and I've got the employee code, hire dates, and rates of pay, and depending on whether they're full-time or hourly. You can see that. But these are all view only, so I can't change them. That means that I can look at that information, but anywhere that there's an area where I can make a difference or change is these yellow fields. So let's say my assistant controller is leaving in September, and we're going to hire his replacement in, let's do it in August. And so they have time to shadow. And we're going to put the standard number of hours. And whoops, that was a little bit less than expected. And as we tab off, you'll see it added a little to be hired placeholder. So if this person was done with their budget, they would just press Save Data, save back to that budget database. It moves to the next phase in the workflow. I'm using the same template for each one of my departments and divisions, and this is just for their department. But as we scroll to the right, we'll actually see how those calculations play out. First of all, it comes up with a total salary calculation. That's going to be based on that start and stop date. So I can see where Carlos ended in August and my new hire started in August. Keep scrolling to the right. Now we've got total compensation numbers, and that's based on those assumptions. Those assumptions can include detailed information about benefits, tax rates, as well as allowances on cars, phones, whatever you want to include as a part of that total compensation calculation. It's going to give you a total here, so you can compare that to that total salary number. Keep scrolling to the right, and we're going to see overtime buckets, and we're going to see how it's going to actually post that data, so overtime, bonus, so it's tying back to those GL accounts for you. And I've got things like my assumptions up here, so those calculations that came up with that total compensation were part of those FICA rates, Medicare, and then also federal and state and workers' comp, all of that information that really plays a factor in that total compensation picture. And then it's going to come up with one final last calculation, and that's going to be my head count calculation. When this user's done, they just press Save Data. And the best part about it is now I can use this calculation to monitor my head count, my FTEs, or I can use it as a baseline for other calculations, such as allocations. So keep in mind we do allocations really well too. Come down here to the bottom, we'll see how it ticks and ties back to my general ledger. And you'll see each account where it's giving you a nice summary by account, and then a total down on each column, and then a final budget total. So now I've got my full-time salary amounts by period. I've got a nice headcount calculation, a comparison to the full budget for January versus my actuals for January last year. And then, of course, I've got those nice little up and down arrow keys, so I can see that I've got some extra wiggle room here to hire maybe during that last quarter of the year. And a total comparison of my total budget for this department, this division, and compared to last year's actuals, and then how much of a variance I have between those numbers. Now, payroll budgets are pretty sensitive, so most people don't open that up to everybody, but we have a way to summarize that data and keep that data secure, but you still can see it from a departmental level. So let's take a look at my most popular budget. It's my expense budget. This one's a lot of fun because it's got business logic built into it. And it's a really nice little template as well, so it's the same concept. I can use one budget template per budget area. And I could combine them so that I have my payroll expenses all in little tabs across here. That's up to you. I just put them that way so it's easier to consume during a demo. And then you can pick and choose which templates you like. Some people start out with these and say, wow, this looks exactly like what we do internally today. Others use it as a baseline for building their own budgets, or people just build them from scratch based on exactly what they have today. So we're not going to change your processes to fit our system. The system's adaptable. This is going to be a very dynamic one because it's going to pull in a range of accounts based on this department segment and based on the entity that those details of expense accounts are located in. It's also going to summarize details from that payroll budget and also my CapEx budget. So go ahead and hit Run here. The good thing about it is, oops, let's change my data source here. Let's come back and run that one again. Let's go back here to configuration. There we go. I had a different data source from a different demo this morning. Sorry, guys. Hit Run over here again. and it will populate that range of accounts. So the great thing about it is that even if I add new accounts from last year, it's going to automatically include those in that new budget format, and that's because of those dynamic ranges. Again, trying to get down to not having to go back and edit every template every time there's a change. The other thing is you can have it automatically show up with details, so maybe you're copying from last year's plus a percentage or something like that, or you can leave it completely blank and let them fill in the details. The great news is they can easily just use the same methods they do for data entry today. So from the end user's perspective, looking at what looks like an Excel spreadsheet, the key differentiator being that when they're done, they just hit Save Data, and it's saved back to that database with no manual processes of collecting that or combining that data. They also have access to the actuals from last year. So anywhere where I see a number I want to drill into and get more information about, I can drill down and see all of the details from last year as well. Come back to my budget and continue on with entering those numbers. Those accounts from the other forms that we budgeted on, such as my payroll amounts, I can see those amounts here, and then I can see a nice total of my last year actuals versus my expense budget for this department and this entity. Now, where our customers really say we save them time and money is really with the process logic. So let's come here and take a look at these training expenses, and I'm going to click on that Enter Data button. It's going to open up a whole new world where I've got a really nice graphic of my budget versus actual amounts. So for those non-accounting people, they can really see the differences. They can also see those actuals that were far off to the right over here are now prominently displayed right above the data input grid. So if September is always the same, I can say, well, September last year we did $2,800. I want to put that in that bucket. You can do that. If I'm done, I just press Save Data. But there's also ways to eliminate a lot of manual keying. So you saw me do a copy across and things like that. But I could just start out with using spread methods. I don't have to use that. I can use the spread method to do even. I can do it based on seasonal trend data. Or I can just copy history from last year. So maybe I just want to take last year's numbers and apply a percentage increase. So I get my own what-if scenarios I can play around with here. And I can say, you know what, I'm getting new FTEs, so this is why my training expenses are going to go up. So I've got justifications, whereas my boss likes to call them excuses, where I can say, well, why is that? Why do I need more money this year? It's going to be a 10% increase from last year. And when I'm done, I just go to row. This little go to row really helps to shave off the days off your budgeting, because now you can really stay focused on each line item and get through the budget pretty quickly using those spread methods and those calculations for you. So here I can say, you know what, I also want to apply some line item detail. Maybe I want them to go a little bit deeper in that budget where they're starting to single out mobile phone usage versus landlines in this case. And I can use different spread methods. It's going to do all that calculation and roll up to that natural account level. And then I can have those comments on those line item levels as well too. Those comments stay with that detail, and you can run reports against it as well. So you're always going to have, that updated information. And you'll see in forecasting we can have comments too. And when I'm done, go to the next row, and it just keeps me moving line item by line item through my budget. I can take last year's numbers, apply percentages, go to the next item, and it just keeps me moving quickly through that budget process. And when I'm done, I just press Save Data, and that's it. No more manually collecting those sheets together. Okay, so we've got time for that final budget look at. I've got a nice forecasting model. I've actually got a lot of great models, so I'm happy to do a one-on-one demo with you and really discuss some of your issues. This rolling forecast is nice because it does it by period, but just to know you can do a rolling forecast. We have some clients that do it weekly, can you imagine? Weekly or quarterly, however you want to do it. Same scenario where it's got a template here, and now I'm choosing which forecast version do I want to update and by which department. Hit Run, and it's going to pull in those actuals for the first 12 months because it's rolling, so it's taking it from March, and then it's giving me a nice bucket for forecasting from March going forward. And every month going forward, it just keeps adding a new bucket for me. And I, of course, can tie that information in there. And when I go down to the bottom, you'll see that it will show a nice little chart and graph. Because I put those numbers so high up there, it's going to show be coming off the chart there. And you can see a comparison to my revenue versus my forecast amounts, my expense amounts. I can see a nice little chart and graph here. And if I look, whoops, a little too fast there, I can also see any kind of metrics I'm monitoring there as well. But you can employ that same kind of budget logic here as well. So people find that they're willing to do more forecasting if they don't have, if it's not as complex as, say, their budget process. So when you simplify that budget process, now you can do forecasting more often to get more accurate visualizations of where you're going to be with your revenues and your expenses. Opens up that same kind of window, and then I can just apply those, copies and then percentages, and then why I think I'm going to get, whatever amount that I'm going to get. We're at a 3% increase here. And now the manager in charge will have all my comments, all my justifications, and I can update that forecast very quickly, line item by line item, either by entering that data directly or applying those spread methods. Save it back, and I've got an updated forecast version, and it will continue to roll out as by period each month. All right, so let's take a step back, and let's just do a quick summary. We're going to get your questions in just a second. So basically, everyone in the organization is going to benefit from BI360. So get some of those questions ready, and I'm happy to answer those, and I'm also happy to schedule some time where we can do some one-on-one demo with your business needs. Right.
Can you see any questions yet, Christine?
I don't see any yet. I know one question that, oh, here's some. Here we go. All right. Let's see. So if I drill into a GL transaction that references an invoice, and that invoice is stored in SharePoint, can I render the image? You can render the link to that image, so you can just link back to it and then pop it open that way. That's one way of doing it as well. And it says, can you prevent people from seeing dollar amounts on labor transactions? Yes, you can either not include them, or you can just summarize those amounts as well. The budget sheets look great. Are they all installed templates available to all? Yep. Everything you saw today was a template. It's available for download in our customer portal. And a lot of times people will see some of those templates and say, wow, that's exactly what we do. I even had one customer say, did you steal my template? No, they're just pretty common formatting. And then if you want to add something to it, you can use that drag and drop to add fields or change things up or colors and things like that. All right. I know one question I always get is what version of Excel do you have to have, and that's 2007 Service Pack 2 and higher. So most of you probably are already beyond that, but that's the minimum that you need for it, because that's when Microsoft made the changes where you get to that database directly. All right. I don't see any other questions, and would love to, if you have any other questions, give us a call. I think that, let's put this, whoops, maybe I got there. Here's some key updates, and I'm going to pass it back to you, Max, and let me know, and I'll just drive the PowerPoint.
Hi, Christine. We do have additional questions coming in now.
Okay. What is the licensing? Well, the licensing is a lot like the product. It's modular. So depending on the different types of users you have and which modules you have. So with the power users, they get to have the ability to build reports, run budgets, run dashboards, and that's one type. The other type is what we call a player, and they can run reports, they can run dashboards and reports to the portal. And then we have budget users, which actually have the same ability but budgeting as well and input. And then one question about how do we see the recorded copy of this presentation? And I believe that Max will send that out to the attendees or on your website?
Yes, we will. We will be sending out a link to the actual recorded version so you can watch it again if you'd like and refresh yourself.
All right. Okay, so let's make sure we're getting, move into the details. Anyone going to be at Convergence? SIS will be there. We'll be there as well.
And we can certainly take you by the Solver booth and have a one-on-one demo if you'd like at Convergence. We look forward to seeing you there.
And then, if you have any more